This week we finished Out of Door Life for Children, the part 2 of home education. And it was a good end to this chapter. It was about, I think 17 pages is what we read. Hi, welcome to the discussion. I hope you guys are ready to chat. I've got a lot of books to look at, so I hope you guys are ready for this discussion. We'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully a few more people will join us. So this week we talked about the child and Mother Nature, and the child getting familiar with Mother Nature, which is obviously an extension of what we've been talking about in the weeks past. This section started off talking about how the mother shouldn't talk too much while the children are outside exploring, which is kind of a relief, really, because there's so much to learn and so much to see. It's nice to know we don't have to discuss all of it right this minute. We can, take our time. And she says, each thing has its time and place to learn. You don't have to teach it all right this minute. She says, no more than a single tick is to be delivered in any given second. So we don't have to be overwhelmed by what all there is to teach about nature. We can take it slow and steady, just like nature does, which is what she said last week, that nature is a slow teacher, but it's perfect for a child who's curious. And then she goes on to talk about making a new acquaintance. And she says that, her practices of sightseeing and picture painting that we discussed a few weeks ago, it'll only take them, 15 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, and then they're done. So you're free to, enjoy all this free time once they're done with their 15 minutes or so of observing and telling you what they've observed. She says, this is truly a delightful thing to watch. The mother reads her book or knits her sock, checking all attempts to make talk. The child stares up into a tree or down into a flower, doing nothing, thinking of nothing, or leads a bird's life among the branches, or capers about in aimless ecstasy. Quite foolish, irrational doings, but all the time a fashioning is going on. Nature is doing her part. So the biggest responsibility lies within Mother Nature. And Charlotte says that it's just a natural unfolding, this learning that children have as they're in nature. Hi, welcome. So I asked you guys this week what you kind of occupy yourself with whenever, let me adjust my camera a little bit. Whenever your kids are outside exploring, like what do you do while your kids play outside? And I got some good responses. A lot of people said that you explore alongside them. And some people said they garden or they tend to the animals if they live on a farm. If they go to the beach, they do some beach combing. If they're just kind of out on a walk, they'll do some gathering and collecting themselves. A lot of people said that they read or relax, take pictures, nature journaling, knitting, fold laundry, and lesson plan. So a good use of time can be made in those hours that our children are outside exploring. Charlotte also went on to point out that, which I like this part, she said, occasionally we can point out these beautiful things that really strike us and remind our children that God made this. This is a thought of God, and I loved that phrase. It's a thought of God, and it's so special to Him, and therefore it should be special to us, and He delights in our delighting in His creation. So this quote was really good right here. I want to read it. She, the mother, will point to some lovely flower or gracious tree, not only as a beautiful work, but a beautiful thought of God, in which we may believe He finds continual pleasure, in which He is pleased to see His human child rejoice in. Such a seed of sympathy with a divine thought sown in the heart of the child is worth many of the sermons the man may listen to hereafter, much of the divinity he may read. So it's all this, growing this appreciation of God's creation and being more conscious of it in our day-to-day life. Hello, welcome, new people who just jumped on. Okay, so then she moves on to outside games and the things we can do with all this spare time that we have outside. She says, first of all, you can squeeze in a few lessons if you want to. She recommends things like French or your foreign language, whatever you are interested in learning. Hi. She recommends French, which of course she was English, so that makes sense. I know a lot of people in the States prefer to learn things like Spanish because it's also a common language here in the United States. So, you know, whatever foreign language you would like your children to learn, learning early is a good time, which we have dabbled in foreign language. We don't do it consistently. We should, but there are lots of free apps for that. I know, what are the apps? Do you guys know any apps? You're late. It's okay. That's okay. No worries if you have to hop off. I understand. I've got kids too, so I get it. What are the Spanish or the language apps? I'm going blank. Duolingo is one of them. There's another one, but I can't think of it. But yeah, there are free apps to learn foreign languages. I'm not sure how extensive they are, but it's a good start, you know, for this age when they're little. So French isn't required. Well, we probably won't learn French. I don't know. She recommends it, but she was in England, so I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't think it's necessarily required. I think any foreign language would do. Yeah. Spanish, I think, is important here in the States. We use Rosetta Stone. It's not free, though. I've heard good things about Rosetta Stone. I'd love to invest in it one day. I've seen Duolingo, but don't know if any other freebies. There's one other one, but I can't think of it. Hi. Hello. I had it on my phone at one point, but I can't remember what the app was called. We're talking about foreign language apps that you can download on your phone. Okay, so moving on from the French lesson. If you feel like you should learn French, then by all means, you go ahead and learn French. I would love to learn French, or Italian, or Spanish, the love languages, isn't that what they're called? And German. German may be fairly easy. It's like English came from German, didn't it? I'm not certain. Don't quote me on that. Okay, so anyways, after your short little lesson that you squeeze in, she says it's time to let the kids play. She mentioned several different games. She mentioned Ron's, which I looked that up, and it's like a dance where they all gather in a circle and do a little like play type thing, which I remember doing that kind of thing. We did like Miss Mary Mac. I can't think of any others right off the top of my head. But she said it's a good time for the kids to be loud and play and run around and be crazy because they need that energy, that use of their energy to be free to run. And she says find the lonely places where they're not going to bother anybody or be an annoyance to the neighbors. Go out where there's a wide open space and they can yell and scream without bothering everybody. She said, people talk of weak lungs, weak chest, weak throat, but perhaps it does not occur to everybody that strong lungs and strong throat are commonly to be had on the same terms as a strong arm or wrist by exercise, training, use. Okay, it said poor connection. I hope everybody can hear me. Mine said poor connection there for a second. If you can't hear me, let me know. My girls know a little bit of ASL from Signing Time. I would love to learn sign language. That's really neat. I need to look into that Signing Time. Hi. After reading this, we were outside. I told Lexi to scream if she would do it randomly. Yeah, let them scream if you can. I guess if you're close to your neighbors, maybe not. But if you are out in open spaces, let them be crazy. That's what Charlotte Mason recommends. Okay. Then she goes on to say skipping rope and shuttlecock, which I had to look that up, but it's kind of like badminton with the little ball with like the feathers on the end of it. I think of Robin Hood, the cartoon, because that's what the hen and, what is her name? The fox lady, they're playing badminton. Yeah, that's what that made me think of. She says tag, following the leader, playing ball, climbing. She says climbing may not be the most enticing activity for a lot of us mothers because the risks involved. You know, they get scraped knees or bloody elbows and torn clothes, but she said it has so many benefits that we should let them climb. And she said to be on the safe side, you know, if you're worried about it, the mother may do a good deal to avert serious mishaps by accustoming the younger children to small feats of leaping and climbing so that they learn at the same time courage and caution from their own experiences and are less likely to follow the lead of too daring playmates. So allowing them to do it, you know, while you're there overseeing it, get used to their body and what they're capable of. That way, if they go around rambunctious cousin or something, they know what they can do and what they can't. And she also reminds us, don't scream out, you know, get out from there, which I do, because it scares them and then they end up falling like you didn't want them to. So she says, try to have some self-control while they're kind of testing themselves, and don't holler at them while they're in the middle of balancing on a branch or whatever. And then she talked also about clothing, which, I mean, in a nutshell, she was kind of like, use your common sense, dress them appropriately for the occasion. Hello. Hi. Okay, and then I also asked you guys what kind of games do your kids like to play outside, and I had some good responses for that as well. A lot of people said scavenger hunts, which that sounds like a lot of fun. Tag, or running crazy around, jumping on the trampoline, digging for treasure, I Spy, playing with the dog, mud kitchen, which we have like a big basket full of old dishes that we don't use, and my boys will take it outside and dig in the dirt or whatever. They love that. They'll be entertained for hours. Climbing trees, making fairy houses. That sounds like so much fun. That is something I would have done as a kid. Creating mazes out of sticks, leaves, or chalk and letting your kids work their way through it. That sounds like a lot of fun. Cornhole, and then basketball. My boys love basketball. They're into basketball right now. So those were some of y'all's responses. Living in South Carolina, we're not wearing wool. Yeah, here either. We wear cotton all the time. That's like my whole wardrobe, which she did not recommend, but I'm guessing cotton has come a long way in production, you know, over the last century. So, okay. So then she goes on to talk about taking walks in bad weather and how we still need to make an effort to get outside, even when the weather is bad, which is hard because nobody wants to go outside when it's all gross and muggy outside. But she says it's still important. And she recommends still going outside 3 hours per day. An hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. And she said try to find the little pleasures that you can when the weather's not so great, so that your kids learn to appreciate even the days that are kind of icky weather. And they can go out with they're still excited about going out because there are new mysteries to unfold and new magic in the weather, or in the winter weather months, or the rainy months, or whatever the icky weather may be, or the hot months like it is here in the summer. And she said that observations in the winter can be just as fruitful as they are in the spring. There's no reason why the child's winter walk should not be as fertile in observations as the poet's. Indeed, in one way, it's possible to see the more in winter, because the things to be seen do not crowd each other out. So, that makes sense to me, because there's not so much busyness in the winter. You can focus on more of, like, the birds seem to be more visible in the winter on their search for food. And she also talks about the habit of attention and mentioned Robert Houdin. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but he was the great conjurer of that time and is now considered the father of modern magic. I looked that up because I was thinking Houdini, but this is a different guy. Anyways, she said that as a boy, he would compete with his father in trying to remember, as they walked by the storefronts in town, trying to remember all of the things that were displayed in the window, and they would make it a little competition and see who could remember more of what was in the window. And doing this over and over again, he got to where he was better at his dad, in noticing and being able to, regurgitate what he saw in the windows. And she said this kind of habit is a great habit for Nature Walk because it helps our kids to really absorb what they're seeing and not just pass by without noticing, but really pay attention. So that's definitely something we're going to try out. Okay, so more about, getting out in the wet weather. Unless there's a hurricane outside, then by golly, get out there and dress your children appropriately. And she said it's actually healthier for them to be outside a little bit, even on the bad weather days, and to stay cooped up because they need to be out in the sunshine and in the, out in the world, and not just cooped up in their room or at the house. But of course, take precautions and be smart about what you put on them. Okay, so hello, welcome. We're talking about getting out in the nasty weather. I asked you guys this week what are the small pleasures that you have been able to find when the weather's not so great outside. And I had a lot of responses. These were good responses. So for rainy days, people said jumping in puddles, foggy morning walks. What is it about foggy days? It's like so neat. I love foggy days. The smell of the rain, yes. Fairy rings, mushroom hunting, and then watching the dry lake beds fill up and observing the currents that aren't usually there. Then for snow or cold days, hot cocoa and book reading with hot soup on the stove. I love that. That sounds so cozy. Then things like snowflake observation. If you take a black piece of construction paper and you can see all the individual little snowflakes. We did that in Colorado when we lived there, where it actually snowed. We don't ever get snow here. But my boys thought that was the coolest because all the snowflakes are different. Then also frost pattern observations, maybe the frost that's on your windows in the mornings. And then, like I mentioned, the bird watching because they seem to come out a lot in the winter months. And then on hot days, somebody said fill up the water trough and let the kids swim. That sounds like a lot of fun. Have you guys ever swam in a water trough? I have. That's for country folks. That's what we used to do when it was hot. We'd go swim in a neighbor's or somebody who lived out in the country. They'd fill up this giant water trough and all of us would swim in it. The water's like green, but we didn't care. And then things like, well, of course, swimming if you're close to an actual swimming pool. And, rainbows in the sprinkler, that's fun. Kids think that's fascinating too. So there's always something on the ickiest days that we can find to kind of be appreciative of and point it out to our kids so they learn to, take note of those things and find the good in the day, not just be like, it's so icky outside. Let's see. We have no rain gear. We don't really either, come to think of it, and it does rain a lot here, but it's usually really hot, so I guess if it were cold, we would invest in like raincoats and rain boots and stuff. My boys love puddle jumping, and after our outdoor time, there's always hot chocolate with marshmallows. That sounds fun, and they'll remember that forever. That'll be like a special memory of time with Mom, coming in and warming up with some hot cocoa. Fairy rings. My neighbor keeps getting them, but every time they get big, they go away or get cut before I can ask if I can go take a picture. Yeah, we have some that grow out in our backyard where we live right now. And they'll get huge if you don't touch them. They get like this big. They're huge. I'm not sure exactly what kind of mushrooms they are. All we have is umbrellas, us too. We don't have rain gear here either. And when it's cold rain, it rains. But since it's rare, my kids don't seem to mind so much, right? It's just special and amazing because they never get to see it. I think you live in Nevada, don't you, where it's just super hot. They get just big enough to see, but no picture, and they look so neat. Well, you'll have to try to get a picture. I got a picture of ours once, and they were like up to my 5-year-old. He was 5 at the time. They were like up to in the middle of his shin anyway. They get really big. Hello. A few more people that joined in the past few minutes. Okay, so moving on. So she talked about Red Indian life and learning how to scout like, Native Americans did. And she said it's kind of a lost art in our ready-made world. She called it a ready-made world, which now it's even more so a ready-made world, and we don't have to, survive like they did hundreds of years ago. But I asked you guys if y'all had any resources for learning like survival skills, and I had a few responses, but I have a giant stack of books that I want to share that we have, because we've been really into camping, and we'd like to camp more than we do, but yeah, my boys are all into their survivor stuff. Let's see, somebody said the Bear Grylls, I think that's how you say his name, Bear Grylls. He has a show which is really neat, and then somebody said that there's a book, an Usborne Bear Grylls book, which I need to look into that because that sounds really interesting. And also the Lost Art of Reading Nature's Signs. I didn't respond because my resource would have been my husband. My husband tried, when he was in the Air Force, he tried to cross-train, which means like switch career fields into, it's called SEER, S-E-E-R. I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's like the survivor guys of the Air Force. And he didn't end up doing it because, life circumstances, it just didn't work out. But we watched like this whole series of these guys surviving with, they had nothing, but this was like the Air Force training camp that these guys go to, and it was incredible. So that's a resource right there if you're interested in that. That just made me think of that, but it was really super interesting. And Survivor Man with Les Stroud is cool too. I don't think I've heard of that one. I'll have to look into that one. That sounds good too. Okay, so first I wanted to mention that Tara, at her Instagram handle is 80 Oaks Ranch, and then she also has a shop at 80 Oaks Market, and she recently released a 24-hour survival challenge that she and her son put together after he read the book Hatchet. And I haven't gotten a chance to look at it, but I'm really interested in it because it sounds super interesting. She said that her son and his friend, after they read Hatchet, they decided that they wanted to go see if they could survive, without anything. And they did it. And anyways, they wrote this resource up, so you guys need to check that out. I would like to purchase it at some point because I think my boys would love it. But her shop handle is 80, as in 80, Oaks Market. So look that up, and I'll link to that in my blog post as well. And then for the books I have, we've got lots of camping and survival books. This one is Survivor Kid, A Practical Guide to Wilderness Survival. I got this one for my oldest last Christmas, and he devoured it and was telling me all kinds of interesting, stuff about how to survive. Apparently it's not good to wear cotton if you're out in the wilderness because if it gets wet, it doesn't dry very well in the cold. So I didn't know that, but yeah, he taught me that. So it's not super big, but it's got all kinds of information in it. Different bugs to look out for, avoiding dangerous animals, learning animal tracks and scat of animals, how to build a fire, all kinds of stuff. So this one is a good one, Survivor Kid. I got it off of Amazon. Hi, welcome. We're talking about survival resources. Okay, and then the Golden Book of Camping. I purchased this from Stephanie at Homeschool Vintage is her Instagram handle, and she also always has the neatest vintage books that she sells. She does her big sales occasionally, so be sure to follow her on Instagram. I'm not sure how easy this book is to find, but whenever I saw that she had it, I snatched it up really quick. It's the Golden Book of Camping, and it looks like it was probably written in the 50s or something, but it's kind of along the same lines as that last one, and how to build a fire, and it's got great pictures. Fire without matches, what kind of tools you would need to take. Anyways, it's a fun one, and he has loved this one as well. Camp Pests. It shows pictures of the different critters that you'll come across when you're out camping. So that's a good one as well. Gotta make room for all my books over here, y'all. I got a lot of them. And I got this one as well last Christmas for my now 10-year-old. The Boys Book of Adventures, which is a good one too, and has lots and lots of pictures. Fun stuff like how to tie knots, different poisonous snakes to be on the lookout for. This one is a fun one. The illustrations are really fun. Let's see if I can find another good picture to look at. Oh, first aid too. There's first aid stuff. There's probably first aid in all of these. So this one, The Boys Book of Adventure. And I'll link to all of these on my blog post so that you guys don't miss them. This one is really popular, The Dangerous Book for Boys. I think a lot of people have this one. There's also The Dangerous Book for Girls. I'm not sure if it talks about the same types of things. I've never looked at it, but there is a girl one as well. So that might be something to look at if you have girls. But this one was a hit here at our house. My boys love this one. And it covers all kinds of stuff, not just survival. It talks about like Navajo Code Talkers Dictionary. So how to decipher Navajo. It talks about the moon. It talks about the Declaration of Independence. It talks about charting the universe. It's more than just survival. This one is just, it touches on everything, and it's a good read. Like it keeps them engaged. So this one is really good. I highly recommend this one. I think there are multiple. It's like a series. There may be more than one of those. I'm not sure. I mean, besides the girl ones. And then my husband and I bought from my husband and I camping books for us too. So let's see. This one's called The Down and Dirty Guide to Camping with Kids. If you are interested in taking your kids camping. Hi. Let's see, is the boy one kind of anti-girl? No. I mean, I remember specifically there's there's a section in here about like how to treat girls, if I remember correctly. I don't think not at all anti-girl I haven't read it front to back, but I don't think there was not anything in it that seemed anti-girl to me. I wish I just knew what page to turn to where it talked about that, but I do remember it talked about like how boys should treat girls, and I was pretty impressed with that. I asked because I almost bought the girl version, but it was all no boys allowed part. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know. My son didn't tell me there was anything like that in here, and I do remember seeing the part about, treating girls, with respect, and I'm not sure. That kind of stinks if the girl one is like no boys allowed. That may be like kind of along the lines of the girl power thing that's going on right now. I'm not sure. I'll look into it, and I'll let you know if I find something in it that's not. I'll message you. Okay, it was pretty big on the girl one. I'm sure you would have noticed. Well, I'll double check, and if so, then I'll let you know. If it's not, yeah. Okay, but thank you for pointing that out, because I need to look into it. If it's not good for girls too, then I wouldn't recommend it. But from everything I've seen, it's a good book. This one was for me, A Woman's Guide to the Wild, which I've just kind of flipped through, but it's a fun one too. If you're interested in camping and want to know, like, it covers all sorts of topics. What kind of sleeping pads to get. It even, let's see, where you're going to use the bathroom if you go, even now you should fix your hair. Bathing if you're really like out without if you go to a campsite without bathrooms or anything. So that's a book as well. And then this book is one in a series, The Boys Book of Survival. And there's serious stuff, but there's also silly stuff in these too. There's a whole series of these, and we bought all of them. But this one is along the same lines as the others for the boys that I've shown. How to catch a fish with your bare hands. How to survive a swarm of angry honeybees. How to survive radiation. How to escape tricky situations. So some of them are silly, but some of them are serious, like how to make a compass using the sun. And my oldest really liked these. How to survive a school dance. And then how to make a slingshot. So, the boys' book of survival. And then the others in the series aren't so much about survival, but they're just fun boy things. A lot of these are boy books. I'm sorry if you don't have any boys. That's all I have is boys, so that's what we've got. The boys' book of adventure. Oh, the boys' book of greatness, excuse me. The boys' book of adventure is the green one. The boys' book, how to be the best at everything. And lastly, the boys' book of spycraft, which this one was a huge hit, because what little boy doesn't want to know how to be a great spy? So, okay, so I will link to all those, lots of boy books. Okay, moving on to storybooks about survival, which anybody can read these. You don't have to be a boy for these. You don't have to be a boy for those either, but they say boy on them, so a girl might not be interested. Hatchet, the ultimate survival book. This is a great book for read aloud. All these are great. And there are more than one Hatchet book. This is The River, this was the sequel, and then there's I think there are more. I'm not sure how many more there are, but these are the two that we have. So those are by Gary Paulson, Hatchet and The River. And then My Side of the Mountain, we just finished this one a couple of weeks ago, reading it aloud. Oh, sorry, somebody's trying to call me. Let's see. But there are more than one in this series as well. And my oldest has read them all. He devoured them. He loved them. They are like his most favorite books ever. These are the others. On the Far Side of the Mountain, we get a lot of ours at Half Price Books. On the Far Side of the Mountain and Frightful's Mountain. So those are the stories in that series. Also, The K is a great one about a boy who gets stranded on an island and is blind, and there's only an old man there to help him, and they become really good friends. And there's also Timothy of the K, which is the follow-up to this book. This is a great, great book. We have, my oldest has read this, I have read this, but we have not read it aloud, but this will be on our list soon. And then for, girls are interested, Julie of the Wolves is a great story about a girl who gets lost in the Alaskan terrain and makes friends with wolves and learns how to survive through, the help of the wolves, and then also from what her dad has taught her in the past. So this is a great one. And this is the same lady who wrote My Side of the Mountain. And then also this one is just Julie. It's the same story, just continued once she finally returns home. Hello. Hi. So these are good, and it's got a girl as the main character. So survival books aren't just for boys. And then I also included The Sign of the Beaver because, this one, he meets Native Americans after his dad leaves him at home to go get the rest of their family, and he learns a lot from the Native Americans who, they surround his home pretty much, and this one is a good one as well. So those are good books for getting your child interested in what Charlotte Mason called the Red Indian life, but what we would call Native American way of living or survival school or, yeah. Can I get that book, Julie of the Wolves? My daughter is listening in. Oh, Julie of the Wolves, yes. Oh, that's what your daughter said. Oh, good. I understand now. I didn't get it at first. Yes, it's good. I read that it was probably 5th or 6th grade, and I remember I loved it. It was so good. It was like my favorite book at the time. So it's a good one. Okay, my screen went black, so my computer screen, okay, so I did all those resources. I hope those were good, and I'll link to those on my blog post. Okay, and then she goes on to talk about one of the great skills of the scouting, as she calls it, the way of life in nature and, survival skills. One of the great things to learn is how to do bird stalking, or, bird observation or bird study, which is always fun. Birds are fascinating. She says, think how exciting to creep noiselessly as shadows behind riverside bushes on hands and knees without disturbing a twig or a pebble till you get within a yard of a pair of sandpipers, and then lying low to watch their dainty little runs, pretty tricks of head and tail, and to hear the music of their call. So bird watching is just fun. She says that, she gives examples of what bird observers might come back and say they saw, and she gave 2 really long examples in the book. But pretty much this whole new world opens up to our children whenever they start to watch the birds. And really, they're just always busy. They're always doing something, and they're always productive. This is the sort of thing bird stalkers come upon. And what a loss have those children who are not brought up to the gentle art wherein the eye is satisfied with seeing, and there is no greed of collecting, no play of the hunter's instinct to kill, and yet a lifelong joy of possession. So there's so much good that comes from observing the birds, learning patience and quietness and stillness. Those are all benefits of watching the birds. And I asked you guys about resources that you use in bird studies when you do your nature study on birds. And one of the best, they were all great responses, but having an actual bird feeder is great because then you can watch, right out your window and see them in real life. And then a book was Birds Every Child Should Know. And the person who entered that in said it reads like a song or a rhyme, so good for little children's ears. Bird call sounds you can find online. The Peterson Field Guide to Birds of North America. And then also taking pictures and reverse searching, which I've been known to do that as well. Just Google yellow bird with black chest or whatever it looks like, and usually you can figure out what bird it is. And also somebody said Boy Scouts, which is great. We have not done Boy Scouts yet, but I think it's such a great program for little boys and big boys too. They, all kinds of great stuff come from being in Boy Scouts. Okay, and then some resources I had. The Audubon Bird Guide app on your phone, you can download it and it's free, and there's like 800 species of birds, and you can listen to the bird calls and songs, and it tells you a little about them and, habits, and so that's a good free resource. And then books I have. This is the Golden Guide. I may have shown this a week prior. The Golden Guide, Birds of North America, which, has all kinds of beautiful illustrations in it. Show inside for a bit. This one is good, and it shows you different shapes of birds. Like if you're trying to identify a bird, you can just flip, and the top of these pages have these different shapes, so it's easier to figure out what you're looking at. Let's see, I'll find another picture to show. Oh, we don't have puffins here, but here's another good one. They're all good pictures, but water birds. Okay, so that's the Golden Guide, Birds of North America. Also, I know I showed this one before as well, but for specifics, this is a good one for little people. Birds, Nests, and Eggs, which is the take-along guide. And these have great illustrations and show their nests and their eggs as well, so that's great. Here's the blue jay, and here's his nest and his eggs, her eggs, excuse me. So that's a good one. Birds, nests, and eggs. And then these last ones they're not just for bird study, but I thought I would include these as well because they're good books. the first book of nature from Usborne, I think like the first 24 or so pages is all about birds in this one. Hello, welcome to our talk. We're talking about bird study. So it talks about like their beaks and what they feed on with what kind of beaks, and it talks about why they fly and the shape of their feet and how that helps, different kinds of birds do different things. So that's a good, and the rest of this book includes things like sea mammals, mammals, let's see, what else? Insects, as like the caterpillar to the butterfly, flowers. It's got lots of stuff in this book, so it's not just for birds, but it's a good resource as well. Good for little people. And then a similar one is The Young Naturalist. I'd say this might be for maybe kids that are a little older, because it's got a lot of words in it, but I mean, Mom could read it. Your kids wouldn't have to read it themselves. This one has lots of different projects you can do, which again, this one's not just about birds, but spray painting leaves or something going on right here. Let's see, let me find a good one. The role of small insects, and it talks about, snails and worms, and I do believe there's something in here about birds, because that's why I pulled it off the shelf. Creatures that live in a tide pool, looking at ecosystems, which that's a fun project with the water, where it separates into different, like the heavy dirt falls to the bottom, and then you've got sediment. And have you seen the bird stuff from Myra's Toys? They have some cool stuff. It's on my wish list. I have not, but I love all their stuff. I need to look for the bird stuff. Looks like such a good one. Yeah, this one is good, and it has a lot of fun, little easy projects that you can do just, easily with stuff in your kitchen. Okay, so that one is The Young Naturalist, and it's also an Usborne book. And then lastly, this one is called Nature in Your Backyard, and it's similar to that last one, and it has a lot of fun little projects you can do right in your home without too much complication. I got this one for Christmas last year for my oldest. Let me see if I can find a good one. Common animal tracks, making little animals out of peanut butter or almond butter, or whatever butter you can use. Let's see. Getting worms to eat your garbage. A bottle of bugs. Excuse me, Miss Ant. So there's all kinds of little projects in here. So that's Nature in Your Backyard. Okay, so that was all of my books. Let me make sure I didn't miss any on my list. Nope. Okay, so after she talks about bird study and scouting, she, yes, I think they're all pretty good ones. I mean, I hope I showed you enough of the pages. If you want to see another one, let me know, or if you need to see it again. Okay, so she moves on to The Children Require Country Air, which she talked about this, I think, in the first section when we first started, but she just kind of touches on it again and reminds us, don't forget that they need fresh air, and they need to go out of the city, away from the smog, and they need to be out in the sunshine and enjoying, being outside and getting the good vitamin D, which has physical and mental health benefits. And she talks about how for the physical ideal for a child, yes, we want them to be physically healthy, but we also want them to be mentally healthy and to be bright and spirited, and these practices, she believes, helps with those kinds of whole healthy people that we're trying to grow in our homes. She says the bright eye, the open regard, the springing steps, The tones clear as a bell, the agile, graceful movements that characterize the well-brought-up child are the result not of bodily well-being only, but of mind and soul according will, of a quick, trained intelligence, and of a moral nature habituated to the joy of self-control. So, mental health as well as physical health, and getting our kids out into nature. And that was the end of this section that we read this week. So, if you guys have any questions, y'all let me know. Otherwise, this video will be up for the next 24 hours, and I'll also post it on my channel and on my website. Next week, we're reading pages 96 to 118, and we're starting the next chapter, and it's all about habits. So I'm really looking forward to what she has to say about habit training, because I feel like that's so important and something I need to work on and that my boys need to work on. Hi, we're just wrapping up, so this video will be up for later viewers who hop on later and can join. If you guys don't have any questions, I guess that's all. We covered everything we talked about this week. So if you do have questions, you're welcome to message me or email me, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.